Welcome back to the Calix in spring, and in this episode I am going to go through the lore because I am gradually putting together what happened here. I have stopped time and I'm in creative, just to let you know. I don't want to have to be fighting off baddies while I read to you. Now we start with the trader here, Vox-Nora. Hi. And if we go to J, you can see that at the bottom here we have the treasure hunter's notes. This is Vox-Nora speaking. So Vox-Nora says, meteoric iron is valuable and rare, and thus when I was a mere apprentice, my master taught me always to keep an eye out for circular formations embedded in the soil, as we all know. Imagine my surprise then when I encounter a perfectly spherical absence of terrain in my travels, cut cleanly through a number of underground tunnels and rooms. I see nothing that could have led to this, and I am not quite imaginative enough to theorize. Fortunately, for how much of this complex seems to have been utterly annihilated, the rest of it is left completely untouched, and I hope to find my answers within. The old coffers certainly won't mind me helping myself to whatever equipment was left behind either. The sun is starting to set, and I know better than to go poking around in these ruins without the sanctuary of daylight awaiting me outside. So I shall set up my camp and descend come the first light of dawn. This forsaken complex is labyrinthine. Of course it intrigues me, and I do not mind being lost here as much as I would some monotone caverns, but I can't help but hope my explorations into the dark underbelly of this world are by far shorter than the subsequent taking inventory of my newfound treasures in the sun above. I got my answers, some of them anyway. I rappelled down the edge of the crater into the shallowest tunnel, navigating the winding hallways until I found myself in what was left of a so-called scriptorium. I can't make sense of most of these diagrams, which tells me plenty in of itself. These people were messing with forces far beyond our comprehension, and my suspicion was swiftly confirmed as I approached the portion of the room that had been severed by the crater. Along its edge, tomes and scrolls were suspended in the air, floating. Where much of the parchment in the rest of this scriptorium had yellowed with age, the pages of these books were pristine white still. I did not dare further interact. Apparently I had the gift of self-restraint that these people lacked. That is something I would have liked to believe, and perhaps I did, at least until I heard a horrifying noise deeper into the complex and realized I had not bothered to pack a weapon. Not that I would ever willingly engage one of these monstrosities given the choice, but, well, I thought it best to head back towards the entrance. The noise did not seem to follow me, thank God, but as I stood at the entryway, I heard the scraping of metal against stone out of a corridor marked brickworks. Yeah, I know, I'm reading it. Yeah. Terrible, wasn't it? For how foolish I was to head down unarmed. I wasn't foolish enough to let these automations overrun this facility in my absence, so I took to barricading the hallway. There was no short supply of furniture to do so with. These people must have lived garishly under their blue and green banner. With the promise of temporary safety, I feel comfortable enough turning my back to these tunnels and ascending again to return better prepared in the near future. Great. Absolutely great. I mean, this is fantastic. So basically, I appeared here when I was looking for meteors, and the trader, Vox-Nora, had a scroll in here, and it gave me the hints I needed to try to attack this place. Also, very helpfully, we have this ladder. The next note I have come across is the agitated regards and the bricklayer's lament. So let's go down here. I've got all these forlorn hope ones. Treasure hunter's note. Here we are. Agitated regards. Ripley, this has to stop. And we do have the letters from Ripley. They are here, Ripley's research. So this interacts with Ripley. Ripley, this has to stop. I understand that you think your projects are important, but I would think keeping the house head happy and fed is quite important in its own right, in all of our best interest, in fact. I just watched Goldfinch fire another serf after he offered them grapes deemed too small, a choking hazard. There's not many servants left to take the fall for me before I end up having to present the fruits and vegetables in person. I keep researching for the saltpeter to fashion my fertilizer and find the vessels empty. When you use the last of something, you put in an order for more. That is how things work around here. I understand this is your first time as research head, but we cannot afford for you to make these mistakes. I spent years training in the Derrible Academy to trim hedges and sprout flowers, never to grow crops, let alone enough produce to feed the entire staff. And I will admit I have dreamt more than once of working on the Ascannon orchards instead. But regardless, I have taken on new duties swimmingly. Why can't you do the same? Yeah, I know, he agrees. The leather worker, bless her soul, accused me of having used too much, yet my fields have never looked worse, and I know my green fingers are not to blame. Whatever you're doing down there had better be worth the trouble you're causing up in the house by so carelessly draining our reagents. I have put in another order of niter, twice the size as usual, and I implore you to leave some for the rest of us this time. With agitated regards, Basira Kumar, head horticulturist of House Goldfish. Wow, she's not happy. The brickworker's not happy. And he says, everything automated through these locusts and helpers and the occasional eidolon, but still we must remain at our stations to provide our expertise, but with no involvement in the process itself. Now that's interesting, because they're obviously automating through locusts and eidolons. Oh my gosh. No, we are mere scapegoats for when the contraptions invariably fail. We are given tasks that are insultingly simple, yet leave us entirely responsible. It's you who activated the automation, so it's you who are at fault with its failures. I think I would have preferred it if they had simply let us go, but instead we sit around waiting for the inevitable shift the locusts break down again, waiting to take the blame for their failure. Once in a blue moon they are unable to find a brickworker to fault, and they seek answers amongst the engineers. I'd heard how these meetings go, once in passing. Every shortcoming blamed on Jonas Folks. And in the same breath they claim still that their designs are entirely their own. Are these engineers so proud that they refuse to consider the possibility their artifice needs improvement, that their imitations are imperfect? I come from a proud line of masons myself, but I take pride in stonework that can stand the test of time, not whatever novel trinket most impresses Gage Goldfinch. I must remain in their good graces, though. During that same meeting, I learned the Calix is nearing completion, and that soon we will all be living lives free of worry. So I will clench my teeth a little longer and turn on the automations at the start of all my shifts, and pray to God that they keep working, so that I may keep working here in turn. So that gives us the information that the brickworkers are unhappy because they're automating through eidolons and locusts. Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. Right. Now, we come on to the Stoker's directive that I think gives us a huge clue. And there is obviously a great gap between the workers and House Goldfinch. I took away many House Goldfinch banners. I'm not sure I'm ever going to use them. And this one says, Honoured Serf, you have been selected to oversee the stoking of the grand engine. Part of this letter has been left blank to give you the room to drink in the importance of this duty and to appreciate the honour bestowed upon you by receiving it. You must be wondering what happened to your predecessor. House Goldfinch assures you the circumstances of the previous stoker's death were entirely unrelated to his line of work, and if Stoker Tim had chosen to spend more time within the safety of the engine room's walls, he might have avoided his fate entirely. As for technical information, to start up the grand engine from an inert state takes such an immense amount of energy that we have elected to simply leave it running constantly in a sort of sleep mode. At the rate at which this consumes fuel, it can continue running almost indefinitely, and it still generates enough power to light the facility. Attached is a diagram of the expected power requirements for the day. Please contact the research team every morning to learn of their schedule for the testing and additional power these tests will require. For any tests relegated to the temporal Calix, disregard their own estimates and fire the engine at full power. This will require a steady stream of coal shoveled inside. Disregard their estimates. Automations and untrained persons are not allowed inside the engine room due to the delicate nature of the work. This is why the stoking duty falls to you and you alone. Please ensure you remain in peak health so that you continue to serve House Goldfinch as stoker. Do not, under any circumstances, let the engine run dry. Well, there we have that. And then we come on to Ripley, the researcher. These are the notes of head researcher Ancantha Ripley regarding her overseeing of the Temporal Calix project. How honoured I am that the Goldfinches entrust a project of such import to my care. In these private writings, I must admit, I had felt as if my contributions went unnoticed of late, that I was not trying hard enough. But God has listened and given me a chance to prove myself. Now this monumental occasion is just that, monumental. There are a great many things to do, and when fighting time itself, we cannot afford to tarry. We must find a way to generate massive amounts of energy in a small space. We must contain and direct it with minimal entropy. We must find a way to create boundaries in space that persist beyond space. All of these are tall orders, but none too great for the Goldfinch lineage, and all opportunities to prove that fraud folks beneath us. I must rally the greatest heads on the house grounds to my cause. Oh, certainly Rayleigh's treaty on temporal entanglement will prove invaluable during the design stages, and even the late Magnus' inventions, God bless his soul, will outlive him long beyond his rotten body, when we use it to construct our compact generators. The colleagues I have been assigned all show much promise, a deep interest in the prospect of stopping time, and loyal to this house most noble. I have not felt such an excitement since I graduated. So that's what they were trying to do here. They wanted to stop time, and I think that was to give themselves a chance to fend off the rot. Next page. These are the notes of head researcher Acantha Ripley regarding the development of the Temporal Calix project. In all my excitement, I forgot to cement the purpose of the Calix. Now that we have a rudimentary design, I may put my quill to paper once more with certainty. The temporal calyx is a device that will create a hole in time and space. Well, it certainly created a hole in space, and because you see things frozen on the edge of this, it seems to have created a hole in time, a bubble that offers sanctuary from the ever-encroaching rot. The horticulturalists upstairs are working on creating a perfect biosphere capable of sustaining life within itself indefinitely, and we downstairs are working on containing that biosphere outside of this world. Oh gosh. An order has been placed for an abundance of brickwork ingredients, the highest quality the Goldfinch estate can afford, that is to say, the highest quality available. Soon the olivine shipment will arrive on our doorstep, and construction of the refraction chamber may begin. These are the notes of head researcher Acantha Ripley regarding the activation of the Temporal Calix project. I find that my doubts have left me. Perhaps it is because the exhaustion took its place, or the gangrene on my feet from their lack of rest this week. Oh my gosh. But I do not possess the luxury of giving up on my charge. My people came through, and everything is prepared for activation. The prototype showed much promise. When we enter the Temporal Calix, I will celebrate with my peers, and then sleep shamelessly at the banquet table. We have deserved our rest. Everything is in place. The head of House Goldfinch has the honours of pulling the main power lever and being witness to the spawning of a sanctuary of our very own. They seem proud of our work at this moment, and I am certain now that it has all been worth it. Readings proceed as expected. The refraction chamber is managing to contain the massive quantities of energy with relative ease, when we are expecting at least minor fractures to form. Curse these gangrenous legs of mine as I pass between stations to oversee the process. But I will have some time to rest and recover shortly. By God, I know I will. The mirrors are directing the energies as expected, and the stabilizer is in place. No sign of any rifts. We are in the clear to activate. Now, I know that there is some sort of mirror and sunlight project in another build. We feel the ground tremble as the device springs to life. The world slows around us, but we do not. I become aware of my breathing, and then I become aware of it stopping, of hunger and exhaustion leaving me all at once. I see an intern moving towards us through the halls, stopping, frozen in time. I realize now my mistake. The field generated is far too small. The power generated is far too little. Oh God, my God, please forgive me. These are the notes of head researcher Acantha Ripley regarding her doubts of the Temporal Calix project. Oh God, my God, let this not be in vain. I am hesitant to admit I am experiencing doubts. All 6 serfs were shot by bowmen at the gate. I was called on to dispose of the bodies and decontaminate the coal cart. I pray this is for my knowledge of all sterile work, but I could not help but interpret it as a warning for what would become of me should I fail, thrust upon me by both the house itself and God. With the ecstasy of constant discoveries absent, I find myself sober for the first time in days, staring at these plans and thinking them a madman's. Oh my gosh, we do not have the means to generate the power required to contain the energy of the biosphere. We wasted too much time waiting on the fuel, but the rot did not wait. Activation of the Calix is scheduled in a week from now. I cannot afford to lose faith in the process now. The halls beneath the house are abuzz with life once more as the project resumes, and there are so many people that depend on me here. More than ever, I must double my efforts. I can rest within the Calix once it is complete. There is no more time to sleep. These are the notes of head researcher Acantha Ripley regarding the setbacks of the Temporal Calix project. Frustrated, some ne'er-do-well has sabotaged our translocator access to the nearest nexus, which would normally see use for quickest correspondence. Without it, every instruction, revision and authorization must crawl along the roads by courier, and nothing moves with the urgency this project requires. I know better than to try to repair such a delicate device myself. That engineer, Helen Shelley, will need to come over again, and somehow I feel like the Svanmark estate has their hands full with rot on their own. It's their road the plague travels across anyway. Wow. The blackguard foremen aren't working their miners nearly hard enough, and there is not enough coal for our claw and fang contact to divert to our warehouse unnoticed. Do you know, I hope that somewhere there is a list of these different peoples and different clans. We cannot fire the engine without fuel, and we cannot proceed with the prototypes until we generate enough power. I would almost think not all those working under our banner are as devoted to House Goldfinch as myself, and I would be happy to make an example out of them could I afford to miss any hands working on this project. Unfortunately, we are pressed for time, and for now these transgressions must go unpunished. We have painstakingly agreed to purchase it directly from the blackguard, but given the staff we need to send and fetch the coal and the tardiness of the miners, we have half the personnel and no fuel to make progress with for days, if not weeks. Never mind the serfs that will have to be disposed of at the gate if they catch the rot. At least this decay will let me go over the plans again and write up my report. I have directed the rest of my staff to aid the horticulturalists in their efforts. I have received word of similar setbacks upon the surface, and I would like to dedicate myself wholly to my research. I find myself annoyed at how much time is lost managing others' failures instead of dedicating myself to my craft. Wow. It's perfectly clear. They have built a device, they are trying to stop time and to build a capsule within which they can live happily ever after. Now, we have further evidence of this. As I said, I am increative. Now, one of the things we can see is here we have these books and papers literally stopped in time. This place is crawling. And you can see how amazing it is. I do not know how people have managed to get this effect. It is stunning, and it's stunning all over the place. You can see there are things here. It explains why they have so many eidolon heads around, because they were trying to use the eidolons. But how they got these fabulous effects of things just floating in the air, look at this, I do not know. And we now know why the lights are on, because the stokers kept them on. It's absolutely fantastic, absolutely phenomenal. And it's very well documented. We know what happened. Obviously, they had something here that was primed to go off and create a globe, but they didn't have enough power, or they had too much power. I think they didn't have enough power for it to work properly. In desperation, they set it off. I just wonder who that was. I feel I need to know. This rust-stricken corpse, who is that? We do not know. So I think this is an absolutely fabulous, it's actually a new BetterRuin, and I think it's very well done. I have no idea how they got these books floating in air, but it is fantastic. So that is the lore behind it. My goodness, what a tale of ambition, of arrogance, of a nasty family with serfs who are working everyone into the ground, and of an experiment gone so badly wrong. And everybody died. Oh my word. What a tale. Wow.